Hey guys, I am Sarah from Exhale and Wonder, and today I want to talk about how your environment can help promote or stifle brain development due to neuroplasticity. So in one of my podcast episodes, I had talked with Dr. Lisa Chow, and one of the topics that came up was child development. And this had me thinking about the milestones in child development. When it comes to child development, it is crucial for each milestone to be completed before being able to move on to the next. For example, being able to walk. Kids don't just start walking right away. There are different milestones for that. It is important to take note of the small things before they can build to the larger things. So being able to roll over to their tummy, being able to sit up, being able to crawl. Crawling is actually really important to be able to walk. Now, we talk about that in the sense of child development, but those concepts, in my opinion, still translate to adults. I think about it as we get older, our upper body, especially with women, gets weaker. And when our upper body gets weaker, we start to slouch, we start to lose strength in our core, which then affects how we walk. How we walk is less confident. We become stiffer in our movement when our upper body doesn't have the strength and the structure that it would have if we were using them in the same way as, when we're active in our 20s, 30s, 40s, etc. Now, I use those ages not because I believe that it is limited to age. I share those as examples because that's what society has repeated to us over and over and over. Society has repeated to us that our primes are 20s and 30s. Society has repeated to us that age and being older means not being able to have strength, not being able to walk as well, not being able to exercise as well. Society has taught us these connotations, but I don't believe that that is necessarily true. I think it has happened because we have built a culture that doesn't promote play and movement as we get older and as adults have responsibilities. Our attention shifts to survival and work and making income, building a family, all these things, without the consideration of how the brain develops within those responsibilities and tasks. And the brain is also not talked about as much yet, so that adds to the thing. Now, I'm going to try to piece all of these together because there's so many areas I want to go into, but for this video I will try to kind of focus on the environment. Now, putting into perspective of somebody who has been injured or had a functional injury, in my opinion, rehab is important not because of rehab itself, but because rehab creates an environment where you can play around with movement, with practicing little things in a safe manner that help create those neural pathways and rebuild them with support, with people around you so you can stay safe. I think rehab is important because you have people around you to physically support you should you need it, but also mentally and emotionally have the guidance to either encourage you to increase the challenge or to decrease the challenge temporarily and find micro steps. That way you can be more effective in your recovery. Not having rehab that does that, I think, puts one who has been injured in an environment that doesn't have that support system and that doesn't have the micro steps that allows them to rebuild those neural pathways. After having my concussion, it has been so hard to find resources that paint the picture of what micro steps look like. And I am so grateful for the resources I have found. And I have realized, based on those resources, how micro are we talking about? For me, a micro step could mean being able to even hold this ball with my left hand now. But months ago, my micro step was not even the ball. My micro step was being able to open and close my left hand repeatedly. My micro step before or in between was being able to crumple paper. Those things may be covered in occupational therapy, but you would have to meet a level of severity to have that support that opens up occupational therapy for you. What happens when you're kind of in the middle and you don't necessarily need occupational therapy, but you're also not stuck in the ER with a broken bone, and you have a functional injury that is invisible, and it becomes an invisible disability. If your environment does not acknowledge neuroplasticity, if your environment does not acknowledge the fact that you are injured, if your environment does not acknowledge that just like a broken bone, they cannot just expect you to start walking and running right away like you used to because it's an invisible disability, then usually what happens is you get pushed into two different extremes. Either you get pushed into, with me having my concussion and my functional injury, not being able to do anything, or being pushed into you have to do absolutely everything and act like you were never injured. So those steps in between are blurred, and you get treated like, let's say, a child that is now expected to run without relearning how to roll over to your tummy, how to sit up, how to crawl again, how to barely walk, and then be more confident walking, and then being able to run. And when that happens, we need to start looking into the environment. And that's why I say the environment is so important when it comes to brain development. And neuroplasticity being a given no matter what, meaning your brain is neuroplastic and will adjust. And adjusting can mean growth, or adjusting can also mean regression or regressing. I just start to wonder about accessibility. I start to wonder about the connotation of being disabled. And I know I'm still navigating my own internalized ableism with that, and I'm struggling with it. And it's a lot. It's a lot to process. Again, I'm processing the ADHD, but I'm also processing the functional injury. and it's a lot to unpack. So I do get that and I do understand, but that still begs the question of how do we start making changes, whether that's in the home or whether that's on our street or whether that's in a group of friends or whether that is in a smaller community with maybe 15 to 20 people. How do we make those changes to promote brain development and to create an environment that makes those small milestones more achievable by people who have those invisible disabilities? Again, I tend to not necessarily have the exact answer. I tend to share my reflections and the questions I start to ask so that hopefully we can keep continuing having this conversation. I do think that an environment that is set up to achieve those small milestones makes it more likely for people to recover, to get better, to thrive, to get out of poverty, to be able to maintain individual living and create a better future for themselves. But I also understand that there are many ecosystems within this. You know, we're not just talking about the large scale of a state law or anything like that. We're not just talking about cities. We're talking from like in home. What are the cultures? What are our belief systems about disabilities? What are our belief systems about what deserves help and what doesn't deserve help? What are our belief systems and our culture that we've developed when it comes to what milestones deserve recognition? So yeah, anyways, again, so much more we can talk about with this, but I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. If you enjoy this, I am starting to put more stuff out on my Patreon, so the link is below if you want to get involved with my Patreon membership, and I will see you guys in the next episode.